Welcome back to Magic Hour Podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Taylor Paige.
And this is Claire. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
So, I am so excited to get into this conversation with Zoey today. She is a recurring guest. She was also on episode 133. So, it's really exciting to have her back and doing a completely different thing than season one. We are doing a numerology report for the energy of 2026, which is really exciting because we haven't really gotten into numerology yet on the podcast. Before I introduce her, I just want to say something that's been on my mind about Magic Hour that I want to say towards the beginning of season three is that I feel like our episodes are the type of episodes where you really can't judge a book by their cover. I mean, this episode is pretty straightforward, like we talk about numerology, but there are some other episodes where it's like topics that you might be like, well, I don't know, or blah, blah, blah. But I feel like the nature of Magic Hour, especially because we talk for like an hour and 40 minutes every episode, is like you might think it's going to be one thing, but then we talk about something different that maybe needed to be heard. So I personally have a really hard time naming our episodes and coming up with titles for the episodes because it's really hard to distill the magic in every episode into a short, digestible title. So if you see episode titles this season, I encourage you to at least give them like 15 to 20 minutes of your time to see if you resonate because they might go in completely different directions than you thought.
So true. I feel like the topic is like a jumping off point in which you then get into just explorations of magic and intuition and connection. So it's like, yeah, that will be a part of the convo, but it's more just like a jumping off point for you and someone else who has a lot of deep knowledge and knowing to just have an awesome conversation.
I agree. And I feel like one of my main intuitive and spiritual gifts is inspired speaking. Like sometimes I have a plan for the episode and then I just get pulled in a completely different direction as I'm speaking. And then we're like, all right, it's time for parts 2, 3, and 4 because so much came through that we weren't expecting. So I just wanted to say that towards the beginning of season three because it's something that's been on my mind.
I so agree. I feel like that happens with us in our solo episodes too. I mean, I think that's why you asked me to be on the pod because you and I can start talking, and half the time we'll start talking. I mean, it happened today. We'll start talking, and then we're like, wait, we should do this on the pod because we have such interesting conversations and interesting topics always come out of our connection. And so, yeah, I feel like that's really what Magic Hour is just like really interesting conversations about magic and intuition.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially for our solo episodes and like the previous listener question episodes. Yes, I find 3 points to put in the title, but it's so much more than that.
Absolutely.
So I'm so excited to introduce Zoey today and welcome her back on the pod. Zoey Greco is an intuitive development and mindset mentor and the host of the top ranked podcast, The Higher Self Hotline. She is the channel for the You Already Are philosophy, which teaches that transformation does not come from becoming someone new, but from embodying who you already are beneath conditioning, fear, and performance. Her work helps spiritually gifted, sensitive souls learn to interpret intuition as the language of the higher self and use its truth to propel through portals into their highest timeline. Zoe's work lives at the intersection of identity and destiny. For over a decade, Zoe has supported thousands of clients worldwide through periods of profound redirection, expansion, and self recognition. Her work spans immersive mentorship, long term containers, and the creation of multi time sold out Oracle decks, establishing her as a trusted and influential voice in the intuitive development and embodied spiritual leadership. Welcome, welcome, Zoe. And for those watching on video, at some point in season three, I hope to get a new phone case because this has been the same one since season one and it is falling apart. But I have emotional attachment to it because I got it in the UK on my honeymoon. So here my need goes to explain everything about myself. All right. Welcome, welcome, Zoe Greco. Zoe, welcome back to Magic Hour. So excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for bringing me back. I had such a wonderful experience being here last time and then getting to have you on Higher Self Hotline. Like, I feel like we're just building a little podcast love train, and I'm having the best time here with you.
Yes, I love that. I know. I just loved our first conversation on Magic Hour and our talk on Higher Self Hotline. I just feel like you and I really come from a similar vibration, and I really enjoy connecting with you.
Thank you.
Yes. So, just as a little refresher, we don't have to go too into it, but for a refresher, what is your sun, moon, and rising?
I'm an Aries sun, I'm a Cancer rising, and a Sag moon.
Yes, I actually forgot you were a Sag moon because obviously I'm a Sag moon too, and then I'm an Aries rising. So makes a lot of sense why we come from a similar vibration. I totally forgot that.
The Sag moon, I feel like when a Sag moon meets another Sag moon, there's something that's just like, finally, someone like gets it. Like, that's how I feel, at least. I feel like the Sag in me is quite misunderstood. So whenever she has a buddy to play with, I really love that.
And I feel too like Sag moons just want to say it all. It's like, it's really interesting to me because people will be like, this person said this to me about myself. And I'm like, I would laugh if someone said that about me. And they're like, what do you mean you would laugh if someone said that about you? Like, that's so wrong. And I'm upset. And I'm just like, I don't believe that about myself. So, whatever. And I feel like Sag moons almost have a certain like bluntness. I'm also a Sag Mercury and Venus. So maybe this has something to do with it. But we have just a certain bluntness. And it's like, dude, we're just saying everything. It doesn't mean it can't be changed. It doesn't mean I'm right. I'm just saying my perception.
I want to speak to that for a second, actually, if I could, because my entire life, one of the things I love to do, I love like understanding things from a spiritual and psychological perspective. Like, I love to dissect things. And my whole life, whenever I would dissect something and try to like discuss it or talk about it, people would be like, "You're shit talking" or whatever. And I'm like, I'm not shit talking. I'm I'm speaking just absolutely neutrally about what is true. And I can love someone in spite of or because of the things that are unhealed or unresolved in them. And I can speak that same truth and honesty about myself too. So I've always found that, like, yes, also as an Aries and an Italian person, like, I'm just telling it like it is, baby. And people are like, whoa, your words are sharp and pointy. So I think for a while, I got really thrown off track trying to like soften my expression. And I'm actually just coming back into the power of like deep, raw honesty and finding a better balance in delivering honesty bluntly and lovingly. Like, it's just a theme that I'm experiencing currently. So I love that you kind of spoke to that, because I'm like, yeah, actually, big time.
Yeah. And the truth can't set us free if we don't listen to it or speak it. You know what I mean? It's like truth only sets us free if we meet it and say it and speak it. I approach life with playful curiosity. And when I'm saying something, I'm getting curious about it. I'm not judging it. I notice things, and it's almost physically impossible for me to find the restraint to not say it.
Exactly. We're very much on the same page. So our conversation today, I'm sure, will be nothing short of blunt truth and honesty that the right ears will receive with love.
Yeah. And just one last thing on the Sag Moon point is for the Sag Moons out there. I feel like Temperance, the tarot card, is like one of my biggest lessons because Sag can be like more, louder, like everything big, and restraint and temperance and moderation almost feels icky to me in an unbearable way. Like I always want to keep everything like cheerful and big and happy and exciting. And so I think it's also really been a lesson for me to like, yes, truth, and also sometimes sensing energetically when it's not my place to share that truth. And that's been a lesson for me.
As psychic people, that is tough, because when you see something, you're like, well, don't you want to know that like you're gonna step into a bear trap? Like, aren't you interested in that? But sometimes people, I truly, truly, I believe that, like, not just sometimes, all the time, we need to have our experiences, like letting people walk forward into whatever is ahead of them and being someone that loves them and can support them regardless of the outcome. We don't have to prevent an outcome to be a good friend or a good support to someone. But it is tough as an intuitive person to be like, ooh, I know I can see exactly where you're going, baby. And I could save you the trouble, but the trouble is where the lesson and the growth usually exists.
So true. So, I'm so excited to get into numerology with you today. This is a topic that we haven't talked about on the podcast yet. And so, before we dive into it, can you just tell the hummingbirds what numerology is for people who aren't familiar?
Absolutely. So, numerology is just sort of another divination tool and resource, very similar to the way that we interpret life through astrology, the way we interpret life through human design, gene keys. There are so many ways that we explore a deeper understanding of ourselves and who we are and the divinity that exists in us. And numerology is just an additional tool for self exploration. I personally know a bit about astrology, but it's really not my language or my area of genius. And I think every person resonates with a specific medicine. And most of my girly pops, especially like us podcaster girly pops, a lot of us are astrology girlies. Not a ton of people are numerology people. But when you come across a modality that you just on some visceral level are like, I already know this. Like, that's your thing. And for me, that was numerology. So, in numerology, just to give you a little info about it, you can understand yourself through a multitude of ways. So, there's certain numbers that are divined through your birth date, and you don't need the time or the location like you would in astrology. You just need the date of birth. And then you also are able to calculate your numerology through the letters of your name. So, you can calculate that usually through your name at birth, the name you were given. And then additionally, later in life, if you choose to change your name or change your identity, you can calculate your numerology through that chosen name as well. And there's like a transit that occurs as you potentially like change your name or identity. And it's funny because in numerology, like sometimes certain details are debated, like with 11 birthdays, do you add the one and the one, or do you just keep it as 11? You know, with a name change, does it matter if you were adopted? Like, there's all sorts of things. And I think each practitioner just decides where they land on each of those sort of more like controversial topics. But generally, just like astrology, it's quite formulaic. It operates in cycles of 9, so 1 through 9 with some master numbers. And we'll talk about all of that. But essentially, it's just a tool for understanding yourself better, your place in the world, your purpose, your gifts, your challenges, your karmic debt, your way of approaching things, the way that you're perceived, your compatibility with other people. You can calculate that with numerology. So it's just a tool for better understanding yourself and those in your life.
I love that. And with those like hot button issues, I think that's so regular in every divinatory avenue. Like astrology is the same way. And I take a very loose approach in terms of judgment and dogmatic thinking. And I'm like, spirit will get the message to people through the right instrument in the right way, in the right time, no matter what method we're using. So I think we can be like so strong, like it has to be this way and it has to be that way. And the more we're in control, the less spirit can speak through us. So I like that.
And I think too, like closing your mind to one, like even though I'm a numerology girly, I'm still always consulting the stars. Like I'm always leaning on my astro friends and I'm like, guys, what's happening? Can you fill me in? Can you let me know? I get my readings done all the time. Like I believe that giving yourself a multitude of avenues of self exploration is the most empowering thing you can do. And I also find that they usually tend to meet in a point of truth. Like my astrology and my human design feel very much in resonance with one another, as does my numerology. And you can pick and choose what feels right for you. But I really enjoy numerology because it's a great tool for exploring what's happening in the collective and then also what's happening on like a personal level. So it's just been my tool of choice, but I've always kind of been like that. Like I've always been oracle cards versus tarot cards. I've always been like numerology versus astrology. Like I don't mean to be an outlier. I just sort of am, but I like exploring the things that are less known about me. And that actually shows up in my numerology. So it doesn't surprise me at all.
I love that. That's so interesting. It's like being a spiritual polyglot, you know?
Yes.
I enjoy that too. I wanted to just touch briefly on when you said our name has a numerical value. Is that like assigning the letters numerically to the alphabet and then adding it all up just like we would our birthday?
Yes and no. So there's only, again, like numbers 1 through 9, and like each of the letters kind of falls within those categories. And I will say that name numerology is less so my forte. It's still something I can do for sure. But when I'm sitting in a reading with someone, I'm usually using their birth date because that already gives you so much information. But I do really believe in the importance and the power of checking your name out and understanding like what are some of those innate qualities? Like that's where you get things like your karmic debt or a lot of information about specifically like your purpose. So I think there's a lot of really powerful information that comes from the name. And there are absolutely tools and resources if anyone's out there interested in learning to calculate their personal numerology based on their name or their birth date. And if you have questions, you can always DM me.
So fascinating. And I just love, the Hermetic principle of correspondence, as above, so below, as within, so without, like how it's all interconnected. And it just, like you said, numerology felt like a remembered path for you. So you knew that it had that resonance. And it's just so cool finding new languages that spirit can speak through to us and how that can unlock different layers of the very dynamic energy that is us. So, so cool. Let's get into the numerology. I know we were talking before we recorded that we really want to hit on what 2025 was so that we can understand 2026.
Absolutely. So we operate in cycles of 9 in numerology. And so we're usually in like a 9-year arc typically. And so 2025 on a collective scale was a collective year 9, meaning it was the end of a 9-year arc for the collective. I was just doing a reading for someone this morning where we were talking about their personal numerology, and their personal numerology happens to match that of the collective. And whenever that happens, I'm always like a smidge jelly because I'm like, oh, you're just so in like the same flow as the collective. Whereas, like, for me, the collective operates at one frequency and I kind of operate at another. They definitely overlap in peace and resonance. So it's not a bad thing not to be on the same schedule, but it's like extra cool to be on the same schedule. So 2025 was a collective year 9, and 9 being the end of the numerological cycle is typically a number that represents conclusions, endings, releasing, letting go. However, less known about 9, which I think is really, really important. 9 is also the number of wisdom, and it is the number of humanitarianism. It's the number of like revolution, like cycle breaking. A lot of people who have 9s in their charts are typically cycle breakers, black sheep in their families. Actually, my husband, myself, and my mother are all 9 life paths. Like everyone in my life that has a really significant place, we're all 9s, just here like fucking shit up, like fuck the man, just turning life on its head. And I really love that. It's a very like revolutionary, revelatory, rebellious number, but it comes from a place of care. It wants to turn things on its head and end things and conclude things and shed. It's a number of shedding, which is interesting because 2025 was also the year of the snake, which I think we're in like very, that very similar energy. It wants to do those things for the greater good. It's like, what do you need to release in order to grow? What are you willing to trade for your deeper desires? We can't just keep filling and filling and filling our arms. We can't hold that. So instead, 9 says, what do you really want to hold? What do you actually have space for? And so as we look at 2025, it's quite interesting to look back at where that 9-year cycle began, which was in 2016. And I think especially in the United States, especially politically, we can really see what sorts of things occurred in 2016 that have impacted us over the majority of the last decade. And how did that really rear its head in 2025? Like, how did it make itself so well known, and how did it sort of become inevitable and unavoidable? How are we forced to face what began and the consequences and the changes and the shifts and the ripples that have occurred as a result of the seeds that were planted in 2016?
That is so fascinating. And so 2016 was the last 9 year and 2017 was the last 1 year. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And that, just touching on that for a minute, is so interesting to me because 2016 was the year that I broke up with somebody that I really thought was going to be like a partner to me romantically. And then that catalyzed my spiritual growth. And in 2017, I started Angels and Amethyst. It's like it couldn't be more literal for me. The 2016, 2017 was like such a birth canal moment. And like in the astrology world, the 9 to the 1 is the transition from Pisces into Aries. And in the 9, it's like this wisdom, ethereal, forgiveness, washing away, compassion, psyche. Like it's so big. 9 energy is so big. And then 9 is so wise, but it learns from 1. It learns from the directness, the boldness, the fire connected to Aries. And so 2016, 2017 was a birth canal moment. And now 2025 into 2026 is such a birth canal moment. And I feel that so deeply.
I love hearing how, like, because I'm sure that your personal numerology wasn't in complete sync with that, but because of the forces of the collective, because we are, especially like as conscious human beings who operate in resonance with the collective and awareness of the collective, it does tend to impact us on a level that maybe those who are like not awake to it don't necessarily experience as consciously. So to hear like your very conscious experience of that time, or at least your conscious reflections of that time, I think is a very profound example of what people will be experiencing as they navigate that threshold. And you mentioned some words that I think are really important to hear. Compassion and forgiveness are absolutely also qualities of 9 in numerology. It's like looking at things in hindsight, like you're looking back at the last 9 years. And it's the same way we look at our younger selves and former selves and go, oh, well, she was doing the best she could with what she had. It's very compassionate. And in numerology, we actually follow the flow lines of numbers, meaning like, what does the number actually look like? So 9 is like a big brain sitting on the top of like a person with a big brain, or like 6 is like a woman with a pregnant belly, and 6 is the number of nurturing and motherhood and caregiving. So the flow lines actually tell us a lot about like the karma of the numbers and what the qualities the numbers hold. And it is wisdom that creates compassion. And you said something else that I think is really important about, the relationship between 9 and 1. And the truth is, 9's job is to finish things. But nothing can be finished if it's not begun. And 1 is the number of initiation. It's the number of bringing things into the world, of planting seeds, of taking action. And there's a shadow and a gift to every number and every quality. And so, of course, 1 is empowering and initiatory, but it's also maybe a little headstrong, a little independent. It's a little naive, right? Like you're just learning something, but you're bold enough to put it into the world. That's a little bit of naivete, but you can't move forward if you're not willing to be naive and make mistakes and try things without a full knowledge of what it could or couldn't be. So the relationship between 9 and 1, even though they exist kind of at opposite poles, if you think about it as a circle, they're very symbiotic in the fact that the sun and the moon, they need each other. And I think you spoke to that really beautifully.
Yeah. Oh, so powerful. And I think that it's really interesting because, the energy of 9, comparing it to the Pisces part of this equation, it's like 9s can maybe lose themselves a little bit in the big energy because everything has fully bloomed. It's like you're in this garden where it's like everything, you're not just planting little seeds, it's complex and layered because things are further along in their path. So I think it's navigating 9 year, let me know. But what I feel intuitively is it's energetically complicated 9 years. It's not whereas 1 year is there might be more clarity or focus or this is the way forward. 9 might be feeling our way through fog a little bit, or feeling maybe I want this thing, but it means XYZ about other areas of life. It's all interconnected.
Yes. 9 does. So, one of the things that I do in my work now that I've shifted into mentorship is I really hold people on the precipice of change. And I often see people doing this thing of bargaining or negotiating. Their ego just goes, oh, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Even when their truth says, yes, we are. And 9 can be a little bit like that, because when someone knows a 9 year is coming up for them, if I'm doing a numerology reading for someone, their first instinct is always to be fearful. What's going to get taken away from me? What am I going to lose? The first thing they go to is, oh, I'm going to break up with my partner, or I'm going to lose my job or whatever. And I think the important thing to know about 9 is that 9 is a tool of transformation, but it's also divinely guided. There's nothing that will be taken from you if it is in alignment. The only things that are taken are those that just cannot remain. Like 9 is very revealing in that you can't lie in the energy of 9. It's just you're seeing things too clearly. But because of that clarity, it can create some of the fog of like, I don't know how to let go of this. I don't like we resist the truths that reveal themselves to us sometimes. And 9 is the number where we learn the power of surrender and understand that letting go is how we facilitate growth and manifestation. Like we have to make room. And that's what 9 asks us to do.
I think what's so powerful about that too is that often when things are asked to be let go of in our life, we don't know what's going to fill the space yet. And that's what makes it so difficult. And so I love how numerology is like, no, for one whole year, it's 9. And then the next year is 1. Then the next year, you see what's going to fill this space. And so oftentimes, if we're like burnt out, exhausted, we know what is not working, which by the way, a message coming through to share is nothing and no one is worth the version of self we become when we ignore what needs to go. Nothing and no one is worth the version of self we become when we ignore our intuition. And I think 9 years might really bring up that theme. And it like requires, just like you said, a level of faith, because having empty space when your nervous system isn't regulated and you're in fight or flight is like the most triggering, unsafe thing to have. And so I think that that's so interesting. On another note, both my parents are 9s, which is really interesting. And I'm a 3, so I don't really know much about that.
Your life path 3? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that makes me love you so much. I'm a birthday number 3. So again, it's like, and I'm a life path 9. So like the synchronicities once again are like dancing on each other. And we can talk about that. But you said something that I really would like to touch on for a moment, because like 9 is the year, yes, where we are forced to release and let go. Not forced, but we're invited, encouraged, coaxed to let go. And because we're letting go and we come to that place of like emptiness and uncertainty about what comes next, some of the shadow of 1 that I really think is worth naming and talking about honestly, that's Sag Moon in me, is that when you're so desperate, and I use that word intentionally, to fill the space, you might initiate things without forethought or like in a desire just to simply fill the space. Like 1 energy can be a little bit of a rebound. Like it can be a little rebound energy. And so I think it's important to understand that in true transformation and in true intuitive operation, like when you're truly operating through your intuition, you don't always have the big picture for a reason. And just being given the seeds to plant with the faith that they will grow into whatever they need to be is the energy that I would invite people to go into 1 with, not being like, I have to plant a whole, field of corn to make sure I feed myself and my family for the next 25 years. It's like, what if we need flowers and we grow flowers to sell at the market and then we get the money we need to feed our family? Like, we don't need to know exactly what the seeds will become. We just have to be willing to plant seeds and trust that whatever is pulling us forward, whatever we're feeling called to initiate, will evolve into whatever it needs to be. So for instance, like when I started my business, I had no idea what it would evolve into. I had no vision that it would become what it is today. And thank goodness, because if I did, maybe I wouldn't have had the courage to pursue it. I don't know what would have happened, but to be given this vision a bite at a time was exactly what was needed and necessary. So I really want to invite people to capitalize on the initiatory energy of 1 in 2026, but also to remember that you don't have to have the full picture to begin something. You just have to have the willingness to try something new. And that is what opens portals of possibility. We don't open possibility through specificity. We open possibility through curiosity. And that is a very, very important ingredient in creating something meaningful and deep and true versus something that we're just grasping at to fill a void that's just been created. There's beauty in a blank canvas, and you don't have to just splatter paint all over it to fill the space. You can take your time letting something reveal itself to you, and the vision will materialize as your consciousness can hold it. But like you just get what you're ready for in a given moment, and that's enough. You don't have to have it all.
So well said. Yes, I love that. And as I always say, we can't skip to the last page of the book because it wouldn't make sense. We have to go in order, and we came into a human body to experience unknown. When we're in spirit, we're in oneness. We understand everything. We're connected to all love. Like, let it be a novel experience for our soul to meet the unknown with bravery and trust. And as I always say, playful curiosity, I think, is a really good approach.
I love that.
Yeah. And so it's really interesting because astrologically, the planets are really reflecting this 9 to 1 energy. Like Saturn and Neptune in 2025 and 2026 are dancing between Pisces and Aries, which literally is that birth canal. So there's such collective themes tied to it. And so you spoke a lot about the 1 year of 2026, but is there anything else you want to add to what 2026 is really asking from us?
Definitely. So, one is very much that Aries energy. It's very bold, it's initiatory, it can be naive, but it's brave enough to try. And I think the other thing about one that's important to remember too is that one is the loneliest number. It's quite independent. And the shadow of one is that ones never know when to ask for help or when to allow support into their world, or how often sometimes to collaborate with other people. And I think right now we're finding that, you know, it feels dangerous to lean into others just because things are feeling very fragile and divisive right now. So people are leaning toward like independence. And I would remind people that are listening, especially like in your conscious collective and like the space that you've created and cultivated. I know they can receive and hear this message. I would love to invite you to think of one as oneness, to think of one less singularly and more about like the singularity of unity, and to allow unity to be a driving force as we shift into this new era and this new season. And with collective numerology, every month carries its own themes and lessons and blessings and obstacles and challenges and opportunities. And January is a collective month too, which is entirely opposition to one. Two is the number of collaboration, of partnership, diplomacy, peacemaking. It's very, very, very emotional and sensitive and intuitive. It's one of the most intuitive numbers. Two is also a very underrated number of love and romance. And I think that it's a really beautiful time to carry that intention of unity and unification and oneness into the 1 year through the collective month two that we begin, and like kind of using that as the portal into the energy that we carry into the year. Can we think of this very like independent driven year in a collective, unified, communal type of way? The thing that comes up around the number two, though, is that two, in its efforts to be peacekeeping and, very diplomatic, it can be people pleasing. It can be potentially like a little softer, a little weaker. That's a word I'm using reluctantly. And when twos, I love to hire in my business because they don't need to be in the front. They like to be in the back. They're not the ones like on the stage. They're the ones manning the curtain and manning the spotlight. And when you are a person who needs to be center stage, or that's what you feel called to do, you need those who enjoy the collaborative process of shining a light onto you. And so two does ask us, like, how can I tend to my neighbor and how can my neighbor tend to me? Like, it's a very reciprocal number. And I do think it carries a really beautiful intention that we can capitalize on and sort of like lean into as the year begins to set the tone for the way that we can think about the year.
I love that so much because there are so many layers to astrology and numerology that at times can conflict or say different things. And so I love that it's not just one thing that's the whole picture, it's layers. And so one is the bigger picture energetic theme, the umbrella of the year. So then two, which is very different than one, might be asking how we can bring oneness, bravery, new initiatives, new decisions, new patterns into two. So it's like each month, the number that the month represents, the way one connects to it is bringing new, fresh perspectives, oneness, unity, etc., into that area of life.
Yes. So I write monthly numerology horoscopes based off of your attitude number, which is the day and the month of your birth added up together. And I do that because it gives me the best way to calculate which like personal month you're experiencing in a collective year. And so I love to look at the layers of like what's happening on the collective year, the collective month, your personal year and your personal month, and see the way that those things coincide. To me, it's like a meal, right? Like having one ingredient would be quite bland, but when I get to add all these flavors, it becomes a Michelin rated dish, and I'm really enjoying something like new, as I mean, my Venus is in Taurus, so like I love decadence, opulence. I love delicious and sensation and flavor. So like I enjoy the nuance of the flavor that numerology can provide on both the collective and the individual, because you are impacted by both and you impact both as well. Like the way that we navigate our personal numerology is the drop that we ripple out into the collective. And that's important too. So to understand how those things can sort of live in harmony, or when they're existing in dissonance and you just get to navigate that beautifully too, I think is really important for using numerology as a tool.
That is so cool. And I was calculating my personality number. It's either an 11 or a 2.
So it's an 11.
Okay.
So you're a master number. And so 11 is like the elevated version of 2. Like 11 is like the light of 2. So when 2 would be people pleasing, 11 is like commanding, but kindly. It's like, well, guys, I think we can both find a way to be happy here. 11 is a leader because it's 2 ones, right? So it's like technically it's holding the energy of 2 ones, but it holds it in a way that I always say 11s are like leaders that sit beside you versus in front of you. Like you're not here to like get put on a pedestal. You're just here to help other people find their way, and you're doing it with them. And it's a very generous number, and it makes perfect sense being in your chart. So I love to hear that. And absolutely, you are a master number.
Thank you. I think that is so sweet. And it's just so interesting how human design, numerology, astrology, like they really all kind of say the same things and complement each other.
I couldn't agree more.
So, what are months that the numerology excite you for 2026?
Okay, that's a great. I mean, to be honest, I love them all. But I think something that's actually important to note, aside from the numbers themselves, is that because we cycle in nines numerologically, and a year is 12 months long, the first 3 months of a collective year and the last 3 months of a collective year are the same. So January, February, March will be a 2, 3, 4. October, November, December will be 2, 3, 4. So hear me out. The same way that we're now looking back at 2016 going, what was that? And what was happening? We get to do the same thing in the microcosm of a single year. So for instance, for me, this year was a personal year 7 for me. At the beginning of the year, I fired everyone on my team and rebuilt an entirely new team. I didn't actually end up finishing that process successfully until the end of the year. I resolved it in an entire year. And I think that's important to see because the process began in the first 3 months. And then I revisited those themes with more wisdom, experience, knowledge, and just a deeper level of like lived experience later in the year, which gave me a deeper understanding to really like stand in. So what I would say is that in a collective year, the same thing happens. Like the first 3 months and the last 3 months are the same numerologically, which gives us a chance to revisit those themes later in the year. So for instance, whatever happens in January will very much inform what occurs in October. And in October, we'll look back at January and go, what were some of the relationships that I initiated? Like 2, for instance, is a number of networking. It's the number of like building relationships. I always tell people if you're going to interview for a job, do it during a 2 time or a 3 time. You're really likable during 2 and 3. So what kinds of like doors were opened for you through personal relationships during that time? And how have those relationships impacted you? And what sorts of patterns or shifts or changes are you noticing in your life now as we revisit those themes? The other thing that I think is important to think about in terms of numerology on a collective and a personal level is that whether it's a collective year or a personal year, because essentially a collective year is just the personal year of Earth, like of humanity. So we can think of it that way. Your peak of your personal year or the collective year is always in September. So if you're whatever year you're in, that's the number you hit for the personal month or the collective month in September. So we will be in a collective month 1 in September of 2026, which means it's the crescendo, the peak of that one energy is like building, building, building. And then by September, it's like, it's like this huge, choir that just like breaks out this orchestra. And it just builds into this thing that like, depending on how you feel about it, can either feel really intense or really relieving. Like for me, when I'm listening to like music building and when it finally breaks, I'm like, oh, that feels so good. So I personally think the intensity is actually like what we're waiting for. So I'm really personally excited for September in 2026 because I can't wait to see the way that what is initiated starts to really take shape on a collective scale. And I think we're already seeing what people are no longer willing to tolerate. 2025 is really a year where we're like, I'm fed up. Like, I don't like, we're all kind of on a collective level, like, fuck this in a big way, And so once we move into 2026, the question then becomes, well, what do you want instead? What would make you happy? What would feel safe? What would feel good? What systems do we want to rebuild in the place of what we're dismantling? And we will have more clarity about that by September. And we will know more about what needs to happen in order for that to really take firm shape. And then we get to come back to the themes we've already visited in the last 3 months of the year with more like retrospective clarity. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense, and it's so interesting because I love September. It's like one of my favorite months of the entire year, and the energy of September always feels palpable to me. I always just thought it was because it was the beginning of fall and witchy season and my favorite time of year. But truly, there's never been a September where I'm not like booked and busy doing a million things. Like that makes a lot of sense that it's a crescendo or peak energy part of the year.
Absolutely. And, I think for me, I feel the same way. I think as a witch, like even in August, I'm like, ooh, it's coming. She's coming for me. I can feel it. Like I'm already getting ready for our time. But even as like a kid who loved back to school shopping, like there is something that feels like a little bit of a new year in September. And there's like a portal. Like there's something about it that feels like it's transporting you into something new or something like where the collective energy is like just in a singular focus. Like we're all getting ready to go back to school. We're all getting ready for something. And the same is true for the new year. So I think this is an important thing to touch on, which is like, yes, the new year is a portal, but it's a particularly powerful and potent portal because the entire world, yes, there's Jewish New Year, there's Chinese New Year, but for the most part, we are all in agreement that something big is happening. We're all celebrating. We're all out there. We're all thinking about it. Like, and even though it happens in stages across the time zones, it's still a collective experience that we're all in together. And when the entire world brings its singular focus onto something, the energy is absolutely palpable and like throbbing. It's pregnant with just like possibility. And that's why I think setting your intentions, doing your vision boards, doing your rituals, like clarifying what you really want is extra important because there is extra magic in the air. And the same thing is true in the collective crescendo time. So like I always think of like the new year and then September as kind of these really peak important points to really check in with yourself and say, what do I need? And how do I give it to myself? And what do I no longer need to hold? What can I release to make space for what I'm trying to create? And those two windows really give you a good opportunity to do that.
That is so interesting. And even just the idea of October, November, and December being a repeat and another opportunity to make a new choice or with more wisdom, continue on the theme of the first part of the year. I think it's really interesting how that coincides with witchy season as well, because it feels like the fall and like December has always felt to me so supercharged with magic and potential for manifestation, and things really happen. I feel like I come alive at that time. And so I think it's really interesting how the numerology reflects that energetically.
Definitely. And the interesting thing too is the last 2 months of one year and the first 2 months of the next actually go back and forth. So like in this collective year, I have the collective year 9, we're ending on a 2-3. In January, we're going back to 2, and then February is 3 again. So it's not just the beginning and end of a singular year, it's also the beginning and the end and beginning of like 2 years that meet, if that makes sense. So like we do kind of do a little bit of this, which sometimes can feel a little bit like we're taking some backward steps. Like we feel like we're initiating something and then we don't fully get what we're asking for, what we want. And then we feel like we're initiating something and we don't quite totally get it. And that is important. It's important to know that like if you're feeling a little pushed back against, it's because the energy is preparing, but it's not done doing its thing. It's not done cooking. So you've got to give it a little extra time to finish baking, so to speak, so that it can be kind of in a deeper state of completion. However, I also think there's something really exciting about that because, for instance, like I said, 2 and 3 are great numbers for collaboration, communication, celebration, joyfulness, community. And so for 4 full months, we're oscillating in that energy of like good times rolling and feeling good in our community and with our people. So even though it might feel a little bit repetitive or like we're kind of doing a little cha-cha for a second, enjoy the dance. Like enjoy the cha-cha. It's actually fun when you know what you're doing and when you can like be in step with the rhythm, it feels really good. So having that kind of information on a collective and personal level is just really informative. And I think the thing to know about numerology too is that that's really the point of it. It's not predictive, it's informative. It gives you information through which you can operate, make choices, make decisions. Like for me, this year was a personal year 7. I really used that information to my advantage to align my intentions and my actions with the gift of 7. And as a result, I had an incredible year where so many good things came out of my willingness to just lean into those lessons and let 7 do its thing. And as a result, I got the most out of it. So by knowing the numbers and leaning into their themes, you're informed and you get what you need to make the most of that energy versus feeling like it's just knocking you around.
That's so interesting. And on the theme of like the 9 into the 1 and things sort of being more flowy and building than just harsh delineation between one number to the next, I think in the spiritual space, we talk so much about endings and beginnings and death and rebirth. It's like something that is so prevalent. And I just want to share it happens in tiny micro ways. The endings and the beginnings, the death and the rebirth is like a constant evolution. Like I see just millions of tiny little chords. And even in one moment, when we choose a different thought, when we relate to something in a more powerful way, like sometimes that's an ending and a rebirth just in itself. And it's through those little layers of changes and endings and beginnings that then we actually end a big thing and begin a new one. But there's so many mini micro endings and beginnings that prepare us for the actual external shift.
Totally. I think on a microcosmic scale, the idea of day to night and sleeping to waking is just like this like mini example. Like it kind of prepares us on a micro scale for the larger, deeper sleep that we eventually experience. Like everything is reflected in, the smallest atom and expanded, like blown up. You can see that it all looks the same, on the big scale too. So what you're saying is really important to say that like, yes, even though we're talking about this big dramatic theme that's occurring right now, it occurs all the time. Like every day you end something and begin something else. And every minute, you exhale old air and bring in new air. It's happening all the time. So I think developing a strong relationship to change and transformation is an imperative part of growth. And numerology just always invites you to explore the different stages of growth, and each one of them is important. Like the 9 and the 1, yes, like they feel the most powerful, but everything that happens in between 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, they all inform what happens in 1 and 9. So they're just as important and bring just as much value and clarity. You can't have any of them without the other, not just 1 and 9. So I think it's important. And I usually describe it like climbing a mountain. You start in 1, you've got your backpack and you're like feeling your oats and you're like feeling ready to go. You got your new hiking shoes and you made sure you broke them in. You got your smart wool socks and you're ready to go. And by 2, you've met some friendly creatures and you've seen some people on the trail. You're waving at people. 3, you're feeling pretty good. You're feeling strong. Like there's something that happens along the way. 7, you feel prompted to pause and go, is there anything in my backpack I don't need anymore? Can I put some of this down? What about some of the trash I picked up along the trail to try and make it more beautiful for other people? Is that weighing me down? Is this a point where I can reevaluate my path to the top? I'm almost there. Do I want to change my route and decide to do it a different way? Every number brings you something powerful and important. And knowing what each one does really allows you to have the most information possible through which to like lean in and make choices and feel empowered. Like to me, numerology is so empowering. I never feel like it's a force coming down on me. I feel like it's a wave that now, once I know it, I know how to like surf it. And it just always brings me the best possible waves and the best possible ride to back to the shore. And it feels so good.
I love that so much. And so I think next year is a personal year 3 for me, and I am a life path 3. So what does that mean when your personal year matches up with your life path year?
Whether it's your life path or your birthday number or your attitude number, anytime that you are in a personal year that matches one of the main numbers in your chart, I always feel like it's like being at home in a way. And it may not feel like it's, your favorite place to be at times, but it speaks to some part of you and evokes some part of you. So for instance, as a life path 3, you are here to be known and be on stage and be heard and be a public figure. Like you are here to be a star in a lot of ways. And with that power, whatever you choose to do with it is yours to decide. And we're all lucky enough that you've chosen to use it to benefit the collective, which I would expect nothing less of you, especially with that master number 11 floating around in your medicine there. But, in a personal year 3, you are going to feel more prompted to like get creative and to be willing to speak your truth maybe a little louder, be heard in different ways, start conversations that need to be had. 3 is the number of creation, but it's also the number of communication. It's like the throat. So really thinking about like what needs to be spoken and how to say it. And even though you might be, living in a magnified version of those themes, they're very much a natural part of what you're here to do. So you're going to feel quite at home, even in the ways that you feel stretched to grow and continue to expand that reach and that honesty and that truth. And it's also just, by the way, the luckiest number in numerology. The flow lines are 2 horseshoes on top of each other. So it's a lucky year. It's a magnetic, like everyone loves a 3. I'm a birthday number 3. So it's the kind of vibe where you like walk into the room and everyone's like, oh, she's here. Like that's our girl. Like people just love you. And it's a year of feeling loved. It's a year of celebration. It's a year of joyfulness and creativity. It only feels heavy when you don't feel comfortable being visible or being heard, right? Like that's where the struggle comes in. The other thing about 3 that I think is worth noting is that 3s can be so creative and like so visionary that we can get a little scattered sometimes. So like I was telling you at the beginning of the call, I was like, yeah, I have this idea for 2 other podcast that I want to build. And it's like weighing on me that they're not already done, even though I conceptualized them 2 days ago. It's like, okay, be a little easy on yourself there, sister. So 3 can sometimes feel a little scattered. It can put a lot of pressure on itself because it is so creative. The world is your oyster. So sometimes you get a little overwhelmed by how many blank canvases are sitting in front of you for you to paint with your vision and your beauty and your love. So I think you'll be quite comfortable. And just remember that you don't have to be perfect. Like it's not about mastery. Honestly, this is something to mention too about 1. 1 is not a number of mastery, babe. It's not. It's a number of trying things on, throwing stuff at the wall, seeing what sticks. We're not really getting into mastery of things. A little bit in 4, a little bit in 8, mostly in 9. So don't feel like you have to have it all figured out. Just be willing to try things and have fun. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. And that's so helpful. And even thinking about 2025 as a 9 year, it's like, what did we master this year? What did we gain new levels of confidence in? So that's really interesting.
And for you, exiting a personal year 2 in 2025, what kinds of relationships did you build this year? What kinds of connections grew and blossomed for you? And what kinds of collaborations were you inspired to grow and take on in a multitude of ways that will then inform your creative collaborations moving forward? In a personal my personal month too, a couple months ago, I got so many invitations like coming my way. Like I got invited to come here and do this conversation. It was like, oh yeah, people want to collaborate with me in a personal month too. No surprise. So that was like what all year was like for you, kind of people going, oh, Taylor Paige, like I would love to talk to Taylor Paige. And then how do you bring those rewarding connections and relationships into your creative pursuits in your personal year 3 next year? And how do you start new things, collective one energy, with all that creative energy that you've got?
That's so interesting. And I started my coven this year. So that couldn't be more on brand for my personal 2 year. And I also really took Magic Hour to the next level and had a lot of dream guests on last year. So I think we connected in 2025.
I think so too.
Might have been late 2024. Oh, it might have been late 2024. I'm not sure. But alas, there was a lot of connection. It does make a lot of sense, and I just think that's so interesting, and even the theme of, like, using my voice, I have something that I'm launching in the beginning of next year, which when this episode comes out, I will have an episode coming out in a couple weeks for you hummingbirds about what I'm talking about, but it's something that might cause a stir, that people might disagree with, that I feel really called to share. So I feel like that also really connects with what you were saying about my personal 3 year.
Yes, exactly. Like using your throat, being bold and ready to be heard and perceived and received in a new way and to a new level. It's 3 is very courageous. It's very bold and it welcomes visibility. But obviously, like the shadow is that we struggle in that too. So it's all about finding a way to evolve out of the shadow into the light and knowing that the evolution and the growth and the awareness isn't possible without the shadow. Like the shadow is where we know what needs to be held and healed and loved into light. And so whenever I do my readings, I'm always like, here's the shadow and here's the gift. Like, here's the challenge and here's the opportunity. Because we need to know both in order to grow. And numerology just gives us a chance to see both of those things.
That is so beautiful. And just lastly, if there's anything else you want to say about what's popping out to you, like what is the gift of 2026 in your opinion, or what do you feel like you want to say? Because there's so many voices in the space saying so many different things. And I just really value what you have to say about it.
Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. I would say to allow yourself in 2026 to be playful, to be curious, and to be kind. When you're trying something new, it can feel so easy to focus on the ways that you're not a master yet. And I think it's so important to know that there is beauty in beginning and there is beauty in trying something new and not being good at it. There's beauty in learning. And I would invite anyone listening to know that it's okay to be seen trying. You don't have to take your initiatory efforts and do them in the shadows. Come out into the light and let people see you try something, because even when you think the eyes that are on you are casting judgment, often they are just full of admiration in ways that can't be communicated. So let your willingness and your courage to be brave and try something be witnessed by others so that they can find their courage and feel encouraged to try something new and initiate something totally bold and big and exciting and untapped in their life too. Like your efforts are a gift you give everyone, even the people that you might not realize are paying attention or benefiting from your courage.
I love that so much. And, at time of recording, we're still in 2025. This will be coming out January 21st of 2026. So it's giving me some excitement for 2026 and it's making me feel really hopeful. And I think we could all, and I even see this so much in like my client sessions right now. Like it's so clear how many people understand what isn't aligned for them anymore. And they even have whispers about the direction that their angels want them to take next. And it's just so fascinating how that lines up with the numerology.
It's all connected. I mean, that's what oneness is, right? Is like it's all true. It's just about the lens through which you choose to look at it, which is why when we're reviewing things, you're like, oh, my astrology and my numerology and my human design, they speak to one another. Of course they do, because they're part of the big, they're part of the whole, and so are you. So I think there is just so much beauty in that. And I value and truly hold so much respect for every modality. And if I had the bandwidth, the time, or the energy, I'd learn them all. But I think for now, I'm just going to stick with numerology. So if anyone has any numerology questions, come find me.
Yes, that's how I feel too. I'm like, I already do angel readings, astrology, and mediumship. I can't do any more right now.
My arms are full. Exactly.
Yeah. Talk about that scattered, the potential for scattered three energy. Like, if I could do everything, I would as well. And it's like, I have a podcast and a mentorship program, and I do readings, and I'm a wife and friend, and have a coven, and this and that. It's like so much, but also all things I love.
Exactly. Like, I feel like threes were a little prone to FOMO. Like, we want to experience it all. And you know what? Someone's got to do it. So I don't mind being one of the threes that does.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I love that. Well, this has been such an enlightening conversation. Thank you so much for coming back on Magic Hour and sharing your genius with us. And I know that the hummingbirds, a majority of them already are familiar with you, but how can they find you and connect with you? And are you not doing one on one sessions anymore?
No, I'm not. As of this month, January 2026, I am stepping wholly and completely. Actually, the day that this comes out is the last day I have sessions on my calendar, and I am stepping fully forward into just serving those that are in my 9-month mentorship containers.
Talk about 9 to 1.
For real, right?
Yeah.
I am now holding people that are feeling that inner pull on the precipice of deep, profound transformation. And I'm sort of a little bit of like a metamorphic midwife, helping people in that journey of shifting into who they've been, into who they deeply know they are on a profound level of inner truth. So, if that is something you want to learn more about, of course, you can check me out on the Higher Self Hotline podcast. Please come over, listen to real client sessions, listen to guest interviews with experts like your favorite Taylor Paige, and also check out some numerology forecasts from me. I do monthly numerology forecasts and meditations on the podcast too. And then, of course, just follow me on all socials at the Zoey Greco, because there are a few Zoey Grecos in the world, but I'm the Zoey Greco. So you'll always know how to find me. And that's about it. Thank you, friends. And thank you, Taylor, so much for inviting me to come back. I've always have such a beautiful time. I feel like we speak the same language and it's just so easy to communicate with you. I often find like what you say is already percolating in my brain. Like there's just a shared frequency there. So it's always an honor to connect with your community. And I can tell you that they love you so much. Like I'm speaking their love to you in this moment. They tell me all the time. They're like, oh my God, I heard you on Taylor. She's my favorite. And you know what, guys? She's my favorite too. So thank you, Taylor, for having me. I'm so happy to be here and can't wait for next time that we powwow. Who knows when it's going to be?
Oh, thank you so, so much, Zoe. And I'm just wishing you all the blessings and good one vibes for 2026.
Thank you so much. Likewise.
Welcome back to Sitting with Spirit, my loves, the part of the podcast where I sit with our angels, our guides, our loved ones in the spirit world and give the messages for the collective. Take what resonates, leave the rest. And if you know somebody that could benefit from the message, please send it their way. I also just want to give such a deep, heartfelt thank you before I go into Sitting with Spirit. This week, I've just sat with so many lovely clients, and we've gone to such deep, amazing places together and brought through such amazing evidence. And it just wouldn't be possible without your open heartedness and your faith in me. And every time I connect with a hummingbird and give them a reading, you guys always express trust in me and you're so open. And I just want you to know it really touches my heart in a deep, deep way. And I'm so, so grateful to be able to hold this space and to be trusted in this space. Like it truly is an honor. So without further ado, getting into the messages for the week. The first thing I wanted to share was in the spirit of this episode and talking about endings and new beginnings and shedding and all of these things. I always like to say that self-doubt is always the loudest before an up level. And that is because what the up level requires feels so unsafe on a deep nervous system level that self doubt is a protector that's trying to keep us in an uncomfortable comfort zone. And self doubt, to go a little deeper with that saying, is such a double whammy because our brain is the creator of our life in some ways. Our beliefs and our consciousness is what we create from. And what we believe to be true, we find evidence of and we create. And so if we believe the self doubt, if we listen to the self doubt before an up level, we are going to find evidence of that self doubt to be true. We are going to trust the self doubt and we are going to stay in a rut or stay stuck or stay in the same pattern. And so listen to the self doubt, get the message from it, but don't stay there. Don't stay in the self doubt. Start making little baby choices in the present moment to foster your gifts, to take care of yourself, to give your psyche evidence for love, trust, and personal power. And I think self-trust is like everything. And so, in that same vein, if we create from self-doubt and our brain is so powerful in that it does create, as I was saying, it makes it really hard for our guides to connect with us, to guide us, and to help us up level. When we are in a frequency of self doubt, we miss the signs. We get the download of what wants to come through and we dismiss it because we don't think we're good enough. Our imposter syndrome speaks over our angels and our guides. And especially like in my mediumship development, I had a situation, and I talk about this a bit in the intro for the episode coming out next week. But I had a situation where I sat with my first super skeptical person and it was really challenging. And no matter what I said, no matter what evidence I brought through, it didn't matter. It wasn't good enough. And it triggered me in a really deep way, which was in retrospect such a golden nugget and powerful experience because it's completely up leveled my mediumship. But in the time, it was really uncomfortable. And I started getting into this rut with my mediumship where I was still making good connections. But sometimes when you're in a rut with your mediumship, you're kind of bringing through the same type of evidence a lot. I guess that experience got me in my ego a lot, which is out of the power, out of the present moment, out of service, out of everything that makes you an amazing medium. And so it was, again, a really powerful and important experience because it showed me a blind spot in myself and my healing journey. But how this connects to this message of self doubt, and it's harder for your angels and your guides to connect with you in those self doubt portals and like kind of low points. It's not that they're not there. It's not that they're not with us. It's that we're having a hard time joining them because they vibrate at such a high frequency. And so the message that I got is like, spirit never left me. I never disappointed spirit. I never like didn't show up in the way that they needed me to show up. What was really happening was that self doubt and that ego and that ickiness that came up in me made it so that it was hard for spirit to match me vibrationally and energetically. And so this isn't to say we have to be like perfectly healed golden children all the time, but especially for this work of working with higher vibrational beings, it is important to get the messages from the lower vibrational states of fear and branches of that emotion of shame and ego and self-doubt and all of these things. But then it's important to get the message and make a more powerful choice and work on ourselves and do what we need to do so we can get back into that full belief that we are loved, we are supported, we are worthy, we are trustworthy, like all of those things. When we get back to that vibrational state, it's like such a catch 22 because sometimes you need the magic to happen to get back in that state. But if we can self source that trust for ourselves, and find little glimmers of it and really reprogram our deepest beliefs towards magic and love, that is when you will have the biggest shifts with working with your angels and guides. And transitions and change in this year from the 9 to the 1, like Zoey was talking about, transitions are ripe for practicing this skill set, for self-doubt, for up levels, for really needing to check, what do I really believe around this? And so in this vein, talking about intuitive development. Intuitive development, a big part of it is learning to have two conversations at the same time while only paying attention to one of them. So, what I mean by that is there's a conversation with spirit and your angels and your guides and your intuition that's giving you a flow of information. And then there's the mind that's like, what time is it? Oh, look at that reaction. She lifted her eyebrow. Does that mean that's not real? Or that isn't resonating with her? Okay, I wonder if I'm doing a good job. Am I doing a good job? The constant chatter. And the message that our angels wanted me to share this week is that intuitive development is personal development. There really is no separating the two. The more we develop personally, the more we develop intuitively, etc. And so, just like in intuitive development, how we're learning to prioritize the voice of the higher self and angels and guides, through these transitions, we are having debates between our higher self, our angels and our guides, and our self doubt and our inner villain voice. And truly, the up level practice is okay, I understand that these two conversations are happening simultaneously, but which one am I putting energy towards? Which one am I believing? Which one am I co creating with? Which one can I listen to for valuable information about where I can fortify myself, but I'm not going to believe it? And I saw this all the time with my mentees as well in round one of becoming the oracle, where their higher self would be like, I know I'm connected and I just need more practice. And their inner villain voice would be like, maybe I'm just not meant to do this and I should be getting more than I am. And just like my whole tirade about when I sat with the cynic and what my ego came out, my higher self in that moment was like, you know, everything you said was right. You know, it's not about you. You know, it's about this person. And again, I had to prioritize that voice. So, all of this to say that in these times of transition, the two voices will be heightened. And which one are you choosing to listen to? Because deep down, that regulating, solution oriented, calm voice of love is really the one that we want to bolster and support and amplify and trust. And that frantic monkey mind of fear and scarcity and imposter syndrome, that conversation and that voice never goes away. It's how much do we listen to it and how much can we have two conversations at once while really only listening to one. And so, that being said, getting into the energy for the week, I felt a lot of magic and momentum this week. I felt like we were jumping over hurdles. I feel like we're expanding. Like, I don't know. I feel a lot of optimism around the energy right now. And of course, take this for whenever you're tuning in. It doesn't just have to be the week the episode came out. So I feel our angels cheering us on. I feel like we've done so much inner work on ourselves and like so much foundational work in 2025 that this feels like the year where we start to get momentum and like the fruits of our labors. And I just feel our angels cheering us on. And so the feeling that I get is keep the faith. Keep the faith through the unknown. Keep the faith through the unknown. There's just this sense of like, follow what feels good to you right now and leave the rest to the future. And I actually pulled the Hermit card, which was really interesting. And when I pulled the Hermit card, I got the message of re examining our commitments. What are we committed to? What beliefs, stories of self, relationships, like what are we committed to? And does it still reflect our truth and our authenticity? And while we're still in the beginning of the year and in a lot of different, cultures and places around the world, the new year hasn't even started yet. What are we committed to? And the Hermit is asking us to embrace way more quiet reflection, solitude, and contemplation, setting us up for this expansion in this new year. And I really feel like a big part of the Hermit's message as well is a lot less consumption of noise, a lot less like social media, gossip, other people's opinions, like all of these things, and more silence, spaciousness, and internal reflection. Taking time in your own energy instead of searching for your answers externally, making intentional quiet space. Screen free is a key word for this hermit's message. Screen free space to connect to your voice, your truth, your inner world. And you know so much more than you give yourself credit for when it comes to your intuition. So all of the answers are inward, and it just feels like, yeah, as I tune into the energy this week, I just wanted to smile because I really feel like there's a lot of potential for magic, up level, and miracles. Another part of the hermit energy can be letting it be slow, letting it be easy, letting it be less harried. There's just this sense of knowing that everything will fall into place and not being afraid to spend a lot of time, silence, and spaciousness getting clear on your own inner voice. Because the message that I'm getting now is that when we do that, when we take, it's like ironic. So much of what these lessons share are catch 22s. But when we take more space for quiet reflection, yin, and solitude, it actually makes our path forward way faster and more intentional, direct, and aligned when we do move forward versus constantly frantically going, doing, achieving, pushing, searching, and going in circles or repeating patterns that we could relate to more intentionally because we're not tuning in, stopping, or centering. I think centering is a really important word. And when we center, the path just unfolds in such a more synchronistic way. So that's really what the hermit is asking of us this week. How can we center and move more intentionally and let it be easy and not let your energy be drained in a lot of different ways that just are working harder, not smarter? So, going into the mediumship today, I felt a young gentleman in the spirit world. I want to place him at early 20s. I heard the name Tim, and it was really sad because I got the feeling that he had a brain tumor pretty young and passed in his 20s. And I was getting the feeling from him that he was always just a naturally like happy and optimistic guy, and then the tumor like changed his personality. I feel like he had this chronic pain in like his right eye and his right side of the face. And it just felt like his whole life was open to him with every opportunity. And then it became so confined and constricted. The feeling that I got was he knew that he didn't have like much time left in his life. And it just felt very paralyzing towards the end. And there's this sense of like not taking things for granted. And the message that he gave is we always have choices. We always have choices, and we don't realize until they're actually taken away by health things that have us bedridden or we can't have power over our own vessel anymore, that we don't realize until that happens how many choices we actually had. And this spirit person does not want us to wait for that to realize how many choices that we had. And so there's a message here of like, don't take for granted that you are in a physical body, you have agency over your own life, and you can make these choices. And sometimes we have these narratives of thought like, well, this is what I should be doing, or this is what I have to do, et cetera, et cetera. And we create the barriers, the restrictions, and the limitations when they don't really exist. And then when they actually exist, we realize, wow, I had the choice all along to make a different choice. So there's just this message here of free yourself, really examine the stories you're telling yourself about your obligations or the type of person you are, what you should be doing, or what's available to you in this life. And just really embrace this fact that you have more options than you realize in the present moment. You are powerful. And this spirit person really wished that he understood that. And it took having all of his options taken away to realize how many choices he actually had. So that was just a really powerful message for me because the mind loves to fool us and project and lie and project things that just are not true and make us feel caged or trapped or cornered or less than. And the body, it's very hard for the body to lie. And so there's just this sense of like your physical body, don't take it for granted, don't take your health for granted, and realize that you have more options in this moment than your mind is letting you believe. So thank you to that spirit person for that beautiful message. Thank you all for being here, for supporting Magic Hour, and for sharing your love, your light, your stories, sharing the podcast. It just all really means the world. So thank you so much. I'm so excited for season 3, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Magic Hour podcast. We are so happy you're here. I absolutely love to connect with you all on Instagram at angels_and_amethyst. I love to get your thoughts on each episode, and I get so excited to get your emails to contact@magichourpod.com. Make sure you're subscribing to Magic Hour so you never miss a new episode in your inbox. We have so many amazing guests right around the corner as always. Please make sure to send your 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify to contact@magichourpod.com, and we'll enter you into an angel reading giveaway with me, which is just my favorite thing, to get to connect with the Hummingbird community in that way. You get a bonus entry if you also send a screenshot of your YouTube subscription and also a screenshot of sharing us on your story and tagging us at Magic Hour Podcast on Instagram. The next giveaway will happen when we hit 288 5-star reviews on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We so appreciate you sharing the podcast with other magical people, and it really helps us keep this project alive. To learn more about me, my work, to book a reading with me, to take a workshop, please visit angelsandamethyst.com. And remember, you are magic.